You buy a brand new, top-of-the-line PC. It has 28 processor threads and raw power to spare. But the moment you sit down to work, your dual monitors drop to a lightless void, or your USB speakers vanish without warning. You try to focus, but the operating system demands your attention. You're hit with relentless pop-ups for trial antivirus software you opted out of a year ago, followed by a mandatory security reboot right in the middle of your workflow. These aren't glitches. They are the deliberate behaviors of an operating system designed by a corporate architect to prioritize its own updates and third-party partnerships over your immediate tasks. When a machine forces you onto its schedule and monetizes your attention with shovelware, it is no longer a tool you own. It's a corporate resource you're being allowed to use. For William L. Weaver, a 30-year STEM veteran who directed an advanced instrumentation lab, this loss of control is a critical failure. In his world, data is measured in volts and nanoseconds. An update that runs for even 30 milliseconds too long can corrupt a week's worth of research. This visual shows a vintage 3D bar chart interface from the computing shift of the 1990s. This move toward graphical user interfaces, or GUIs, was marketed as a way to make computing accessible and empowering. Computer science calls this process abstraction. It simplifies your experience by hiding the complex code and machine-level configurations behind friendly windows and icons. For decades, abstraction served as a convenient velvet curtain, but eventually that curtain hardened into a brick wall, designed to permanently exclude users from their own engine room. To maintain this wall, corporations introduced digital assistants like Clippy. While these agents appeared to offer proactive help, they functioned primarily to keep users tethered to proprietary document formats and corporate workflows. A truly helpful agent would have assisted you in optimizing your kernel for better throughput, or bypassing a restrictive BIOS. Instead, these agents were programmed to ensure compatibility only within their vendor's ecosystem. This strategy extended to the web. By integrating a specific browser directly into the operating system, a single vendor could dictate the standards for the entire internet, controlling which sites loaded and how users accessed information. The graphical interface became a totalizing strategy. It moved beyond simply managing files, instead dictating the user's entire digital worldview and enforcing absolute vendor reliance. This flowchart illustrates the shift toward telemetry. Assistants like Cortana act as data-guzzling arrays, siphoning app usage, hardware stats, and metadata back to central servers. This surveillance consumes local hardware power, meaning you subsidize corporate intelligence gathering with your own CPU cycles. To protect this data-driven model, corporations are targeting the spaces where independent developers meet. By acquiring the open-source forge, GitHub, a vendor gains oversight and a massive dataset of code to train proprietary agents. This structural control is paired with narrative control on platforms like LinkedIn. When tech leaders deploy rhetoric about safety and ethics, they often frame local, decentralized AI as a threat to protect their existing subscription-walled software. This messaging creates a moat. It uses the fear of unregulated technology to convince users they need a corporate gatekeeper to manage the very tools offering them true independence. To see what happens when a user pushes back, consider William Weaver's own home lab. He purchased a Dell Inspiron with an i7-14700, a beast with 28 threads of power. But with its default operating system, it was like driving a Ferrari through a swamp. He named the machine Daphne 3030, a reference to the princess from Dragon's Lair. Like the character, the high-performance hardware was trapped in a convoluted, proprietary labyrinth. The OS sabotaged the experience. Power management decisions would drop his USB peripherals at random, and driver defaults forced his full-color monitors into a washed-out, milky gray limited range. In the past, escaping to an open-source Linux environment meant days of scouring cryptic forums to find a single working driver, because vendors deliberately keep their hardware handshakes opaque. But this time, Weaver used an independent AI agent to flip the dynamic. He transformed hours of technical research into minutes of precise diagnostic surgery. The AI diagnosed the specific firmware conflicts that prevent a manual migration. It provided the exact sequence needed to dismantle legacy RAID configurations and identified the specific kernel parameters required to silence the power management interference affecting his mouse. The agent walked him through editing the configuration files to force a full RGB color range and enrolling open-source secure boot keys directly into the firmware. Daphne was fully liberated in under an hour. After 30 years of software giants promising an agentic future, it took a truly independent AI to rescue the hardware from the corporate layer. As we enter the next era of computing, we have a choice. We can accept cloud-based assistants that report back to a legacy gatekeeper, or we can utilize independent agents to reclaim absolute sovereignty over our own silicon.